Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the first Movin'On Africa webinar dedicated to sustainable mobility in Africa. I'm Charlene Kwesi, the director of Movin'On in Africa, and I will be your host this morning. For those who don't know Movin'On, it is a business-led initiative dedicated to sustainable mobility created by Michelin in 2017 with a simple but clear idea that we need each other to fight against climate change and that it takes an ecosystem to innovate and make mobility more sustainable, accessible, safer, and profitable for all. Movin'On is a French association with a strong focus and topics related to Europe decarbonation, with a strong um, footprint in Africa since 2021, advocating for inclusive and sustainable mobility in the continent alongside the private sector, of course, but also participating into major and physical events, and also at an international and continental level, and supporting, of course, the work of international and public organizations. A lot of organizations we have collaborated with are here today, and I'm really happy that they could join us. Now, let's get into it. We are going to welcome three experts, respectively coming from Kenya, South Africa, and Côte d'Ivoire, to explore this key topic around vehicle end of life and what is at stake at the continent today. And as they will share their insights, their work, and perspectives, the idea is to bring a cross-sectorial angle to the topic and different solutions at different level, from decision makers to international organizations and the private sector, to basically create standards and agreements to make sure that vehicle produced abroad, in Europe and in Asia, but also locally, comply to production safety and emissions regulations. These agreements should also encourage African countries to include an end-of-life policy, including maintenance, recycling aspects, as well as fuel quality requirements to protect the quality of their vehicle fleet and guarantee user safety. So we will have basically, so I mentioned 10, sorry, by 15 sessions for you to get the time to contribute to the topic and to what has been said. To the first speaker, who is currently the Africa Cleaner Mobility Focal at Sustainable Mobility UNEP within UNEP. So UN Environment Program. She joined UNEP in 2004 and has been working towards environmentally sustainable transport in Africa, mainly through the introduction of cleaner road transportation fuels and matching vehicle emission control technologies, and promoting new and emerging trends. So the objective of reducing localized and global air pollution. Prior to joining at the Ministry of Finance and National Planning and International Trade Issues, and then at the Ministry as head of the Petroleum Monitoring Unit. So her background within government and public sector bodies, as well as the different positions held in UNEP, allows her to bring a wide angle view to the topic and concrete examples on how African countries take action and engage with the stakeholders on the ground, but also identify what still needs to be achieved to ensure a sustainable future for vehicle fleets in Africa. So, Jane, thank you again to be with us today. I will let you share your presentation.
Thank you, Charlene and Movin'On for the invite. Maybe just as I'm sharing the presentation, let me put it in full mode. I just wanted to say that this is quite an important topic, and thank you for bringing it up, because what we see is that Africa, vehicle growth is happening in Africa. In most of the countries, we see about 10% or above growth. Vehicle fleet doubling every 10 years or even less than 10 years. So it is quite an important topic because of, again, Africa relying mainly on used vehicles. In most of the countries, for example, if you look at the Gambia, 99% of additional vehicle fleet actually used vehicles. In Tanzania, 97%. In Nigeria, over 80%. So it is quite an important topic, and I'm really glad that we've been included. So my presentation, maybe just to mention, my presentation will look at why the issue of used vehicles is important. What are we doing in terms of regulation and legislation, and what are we asking as minimum standards when it comes to vehicles and used vehicles topic. Just a bit of background about UNEP and some of the programs. These are not all the programs that we do have. We do have programs on active mobility. This is making walking, cycling safe, and of course, through infrastructure expansion. And this project is also tied to digitalization. On vehicles specifically, we have various programs on promoting more fuel economy vehicles, electric vehicles through the Global Electric Mobility Program. And this is where we have a specific topic that we're dealing with, battery end of life, because again, as you'll see, a lot of the vehicles coming in, used electric vehicles, we need to regulate because they're almost at the end of their life when it comes to the batteries. The others are on clean fuels and vehicles, looking at light duty vehicles, which are passenger cars. Climate and Clean Air Coalition, we look at heavy duty vehicles, the buses and the trucks. And we also have a program on safe and cleaner used vehicles funded by the UN Road Safety Trust Fund and others. So that's just in a nutshell some of the programs that we do have. So as I mentioned, we got into this topic. We've been supporting countries to look at fuels and vehicle emission standards, and that's when now supporting some of the inventory countries to look at the quality of the vehicles coming in, that we saw, countries relying more on used vehicles. So we have a specific program on used vehicles. And in 2020, we published our first report that looked at the used vehicles, where are they coming from, where are they going. We've updated this report almost, the last one was in 2023 using 2022 data, and you can see the flow of used vehicles. Africa relying mostly on used vehicles. And you can see of all the continents, Africa is the continent that imports the most used vehicles. Where are these vehicles coming from? The top two exporters of used vehicles are Japan and the EU. Of course, the US, South Korea are also key countries. The UK and now China entered into the market of exporting used vehicles. But the top two are Japan and the EU. And the EU actually, if you look at the last report that we did, the EU is now the largest exporter of used vehicles. Specifically looking at the EU, in between 2015 and 2022, looking at the top 10 importers of used vehicles from the EU, you can see 6 of the 10 top importers are actually from Africa. That's why we are saying Africa is a significant importer of used vehicles, and why we need to now focus more on used vehicles. When we did our first report in 2020, the Netherlands collaborated with us to do another study that would link up with what we were doing, looking at used vehicles exported from the Dutch ports. So these are vehicles that are coming from Belgium, from Germany, but being exported from the Dutch port. And they looked at the quality of those vehicles because we were looking at the numbers. We did not have a specific information. So they did a report and we shared it together on the quality of these vehicles. And you can see some of those vehicles were quite old. You know, some vehicles, even 26-year-old vehicles being shipped into Africa for the first time. The majority of those vehicles, like for example, in Nigeria, the average age of those used vehicles being exported were on average 18, 19 years. Most of these vehicles already had expired roadworthiness certificate, which had expired for more than a month. So they did not have a valid roadworthiness certificate, which means that they could not be allowed to drive within the EU, and they were now starting their life in Africa. I think what is important also is that they saw, especially for the gasoline vehicles, for the petrol vehicles, the vehicles being shipped to West Africa matched those, a big portion matched those going to dismantling, going for their end of life dismantling in the Netherlands. So it's not just the safety, the roadworthiness, but also when it comes to emissions. If you're looking at Euro 4, because that's one of the things that we are supporting countries to have some minimum vehicle standards, emission standards that, you know, where we start having some health benefits. And Euro 4 is not a very stringent standard. We already know that Europe is moving to Euro 7. So Euro 4 was introduced in 2005, which is like 20 years ago, but that's where you start having the health benefits. And you can see most of the vehicles being shipped, especially to West Africa at that time, were pre-Euro 4. Morocco, on the other hand, you can see the vehicles were Euro 5, Euro 6, because they already had a Euro 4 vehicle emission standard and a 5-year age limit at that time. Now they've actually even moved to Euro 6. So what have we been doing as UNEP? We have been supporting countries through what we call as a systems approach, because you need clean fuels and clean vehicle standards to be able to actually have the maximum benefits. So we've been supporting countries to shift towards low sulfur fuels, lead-free petrol, and of course, as I mentioned, Euro 4 minimum vehicle emission standards. And of course, once the vehicles are in the country, some minimum inspection and maintenance programs. We've been doing this through workshops, through reports, through some support on vehicle emissions. So we have, and also partnering with some of the, we have partnerships, for example, through the FIA, CETA, to carry out some of these activities. On the fuel side, we've seen some good progress through this support. Specifically for Africa, you can see when we started, the whole continent was on very high sulfur levels. So whatever vehicle was coming in or being imported or produced into the continent was going to, the emission control technology was going to fail because of very high poor quality fuels. And you can see in 2025, we have some good progress. East Africa, example, and Morocco already have the same fuel as in Europe. We've worked with the West Africa ECOWAS Commission, for example, to be able to support regionally harmonized standards. A few countries have implemented, as you can see, the status in 2005, but we are working with the sub-region to be able to meet the standards. The vehicle emission standards, there is a challenge. Only East Africa has just barely adapted Euro 4. They are now in the process of implementing, but we can see West Africa and the rest of Africa, only Morocco has a Euro 6, as I mentioned. That's a big challenge. ECOWAS, we have supported them. They already have a harmonized standard, Euro 4, that was implemented, adapted in 2020, and have some age limit, for example, for passenger cars, 5-year age limit for import, but not yet implemented. This is only implemented in Cote d'Ivoire, the age limit, but not the vehicle emission standards. So what is our ask when we're supporting countries on vehicle end of life or cleaner vehicles, I would say? To stop, we've been working with exporting countries and importing countries to ensure that end-of-life vehicles are not exported or imported into the sub-region. You can see above, the picture is actually in Kenya. These are electric used vehicles imported to run a taxi fleet. They're already at their end of life, so it's a big challenge. Having roadworthiness certificate, having pre-inspection of these vehicles at the point of export so that they're not even shipped into Africa if they do not meet the compliance standards. I mentioned a minimum of Euro 4 standards for both new and used vehicles, and we are targeting Euro 6. That's where, as I mentioned, Europe is already moving to Euro 7. And the age limit is up to countries and sub-regions to shift to adapt that or whatever the requirements they would like. We're also supporting countries on in-use vehicle mandatory inspection, and of course on moving to low sulfur fuels or cleaner fuels with a target to what Europe already has. I just wanted to mention and to leave a website here in this link. I think the presentations will be shared on why we really need to work on this. We recently supported Uganda to do the first real urban emission testing project. You've been hearing about TRUE, which is real world vehicle emission testing in London, in Paris, and other developed cities. But we've done the first one in Africa, in Kampala. We had the workshop 1st and 2nd of July. Tested randomly on the street 6,000 vehicles to look at the emissions, and the results are quite wanting, very, very high emission levels, very old vehicles being imported because Uganda does not have an age limit, especially for heavy duty vehicles. Like last year, the average age of heavy duty vehicles, the trucks being imported, was 36 years, very, very high. So this is an example of what we've been working in one of the programs on used vehicles, working with various global partners and Africa regional partners as well. Thank you. I think that's what I just wanted to share in the few minutes. Over to you, Charlene.
Thank you very much, Jane. This is very valuable insights. I think it's always breathtaking to see like the long process that it takes for countries to actually adapt. And we've seen with the example of ECOWAS, notably in West Africa, but also in East Africa, that things are moving forward. You mentioned also the example of Morocco, which is, I think, a leading country in this area in the continent. And we hope to have more examples. Later, we'll have examples from South Africa, for example, with Manji. So it's really great to hear. I'm also impatient to see if our audience have questions about what has been said, or also comments or reactions according to your own country's ecosystem and examples, use cases on the ground. So do not hesitate to react. I think we have a question from Paul. Do not hesitate, Paul, to tell us who you are, your position, and then ask your question.
Thank you and good day to everyone. I am Paul Setsui, the Road Safety Coordinator for Emergency Assist 991 in Botswana. We are a club affiliated to the FIA. My question is based on the challenges that we face as clubs to inspire government to change laws, particularly on safer vehicles. The challenge that we face currently is that our government is pretty much stuck to the status quo of having an open border policy when it comes to used vehicles. And despite our previous attempts, in which we hosted a safer and cleaner used vehicles online webinar, which was about 2 or 3 years ago, there was a bit of resistance on the side of government to at least try and introduce minimum standards for importation of motor vehicles in Africa, in Botswana rather. So my question would be, what would be the best approach for us to drive change in our country, and what benchmarks or case studies can you share of countries that have successfully changed their laws with respect to importation of used vehicles as a result of pressure from NGOs or clubs like ourselves? Thank you.
I can go ahead and answer, or you'll take the
Yeah,
next one?
yeah, yeah. Please
Okay.
go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you, Paul, for the question. We've actually also supported Botswana to look at the kind of vehicles being imported, and we know they kept on saying that they've picked the bad habit from East Africa of importing very old vehicles. So what we've done is that, like for example, in December 2023, we brought together the Southern Africa sub countries to again discuss the issue of used vehicles and why it's important to regulate. So what we do is that we do support countries to do a vehicle inventory, to look at the quality of vehicles being imported. And that has been an eye-opener for the countries because they are able to see that they're actually, instead of moving towards cleaner and more efficient vehicles, they are moving towards more dirtier and safer vehicles. So that, for example, like Uganda is one of the reasons why the government was like really alarmed at the kind of vehicles being imported, the cost of those vehicles, because almost immediately you have to bring in spare parts and all that. The road, the safety angle. So it's opening those kind of avenues to the governments to be able to see and to also offer what other countries have done. For example, in the sub-region, Mauritius has been a very good case study, where they have been able to put in place programs, policies to support cleaner and safer vehicles. So those kinds of exchanges and to show what are the benefits is one of the approaches, but also having some pressure from the clubs, from the civil society, I think that's quite important. Yeah.
Does anyone else have a question? I think Deepak has one. Welcome, Deepak.
Hey, I'm part of Movin'On. I'm working on ports and maritime, and I see similarities between, I would say, end of life of ships and end of life of vehicles, where kind of the coordination on a UN level or a global level needs to happen, because with the moment one country toughens its stance, it simply shifts to other countries or other regions. So you're not solving the solution, you're just displacing the solution until your regulation becomes the weakest again, and then things move again back to where it needs to. Is there a table at which, let's say, the African countries have an input or opinion to give on, let's say, the new Euro 7 norms on electrical vehicles, to say, look, this is where in 5 years, in 10 years time, when you get to end of life, these norms will affect us in the sense of what is coming to us. Are these coordinations being done? Is that something that is interesting to do? Maybe that's something, Charlene, that Movin'On could take on, to say, look, these norms need to be co-created, especially towards end of life, and what kind of vehicles end up on the African continent.
Definitely, that's quite a really, really good question, because once these vehicles end, they will start their life somewhere else, which is mainly in Africa. Sometimes the third, or fourth life is in Africa. Because what we saw, like, for example, some of the vehicles being shipped from Japan to Singapore, then Singapore, after some use, to Africa. So, Africa is like the last frontier, actually, when it comes to the used vehicle market. So under the Global Electric Mobility Program, I mentioned we have a specific program on end-of-life batteries and used EVs, electric vehicles. And that's under that program. It's not very old. It's about, we started that last year. So one of the topics that we are engaging, for example, with the Global Battery Alliance and some of the OEMs, is to try and look at recyclability and those kinds of issues, because those vehicles are going to, to come into Africa. So how do we end up with the recycling and managing all these batteries? Because like I showed you, those vehicles in Kenya that are now lying in a yard, very dangerous, because they could catch fire anytime, not sustainable. So it is part and parcel of what we're doing, and definitely we welcome other partners moving on to help and join this. Yes.
Does anyone else have a question? I actually have one, Jane, related to what's happening on the ground, especially towards mechanics. And as you know, and as many of us in the table, in the digital table know, most of the maintenance is ensured by informal workers in most of our countries. And I was really I would say interested in knowing how these populations, these workers are actually skilled, upskilled on how vehicles should be maintained, and basically the capacity building programs that UNEP carried out, or as carried out in the past.
Definitely, as we move towards, because the ultimate objective is safer and cleaner vehicles, emission-wise and safety-wise, mechanics play a key role. We have the first thing that we've started as you know, as UNEP, is to ensure first that we have mandatory inspection and maintenance programs, because that is also lacking. Like, for example, where I'm based in Kenya, it's not mandatory for light duty vehicles, for passenger cars to have inspection. After you bought your vehicle, that's it. So it's just the heavy duty commercial and the trucks, and I think from pickups going up, that are required. So it's really important for governments to make it mandatory, so that people take their cars, specific periods, after 2 years, after 3 years, depending on the law, annually, for inspection. So that's something that we are working with governments and sub-regions to make mandatory. And with that, again, the need now to have mechanics, because first you have to make it mandatory and then do the training. We've done a bit of training for the mechanics. Definitely we need more partners, because it's a huge thing, because you can only do one and hope that other people will take it up. So, but we're already seeing other partners taking it up and conducting the trainings, because as we move, you can imagine, to electric vehicles, to, the latest technology vehicles, a spanner will not do for the mechanic. You need more advanced skills. So we are already seeing some of and even the OEMs are taking it up, because I've seen some of the companies actually already advertising programs and carrying out programs on training of these mechanics. Very important for governments to have certified service centers. So it is a huge, topic that we need to open up.
It's something. Sorry, Deepak, I will just leave the floor to you
Yeah.
afterwards. But and that's why I really wanted to have Auto 24, Auto 24 here today, because they provide this kind of services here in Côte d'Ivoire, and we see that there's different level of maturity. You mentioned in Kenya, there's no, I would say, control, technical control, mandatory. At least in some countries in Africa, we have this requirement, a yearly control, a technical control. And for these countries, because I imagine it's a huge work, you have to actually implement programs in terms of the level of advancement of the countries. And in countries that are more advanced, you mentioned the case of Côte d'Ivoire with the age limit on importation. Do you see any other country that is taking the lead as well, and has also provided capacity building on mechanics, as they have already, I would say, advanced, in their vehicle inspections and also emissions?
Yeah, definitely. We already, first of all, actually, maybe just to get back a little bit, in Cote d'Ivoire, I was like, the first time I came, the vehicles were so old, so polluting, being pushed back forth, so we did a program with a large project with the government to look at the kind of fleet coming in, what can be done. And as a result, actually, that's when the age limit came in. So, that's why I was responding to Paul, that you need to open the eyes of the governments to see that they're actually losing money because the governments, but they need to regulate the vehicles. So we do have very good examples, like I mentioned, Morocco. And we have now a project to expand on the training for Morocco. And we see that we hope that we'll be able to have Morocco share some of their experience with some of the African countries, because they are quite advanced. As I mentioned, it's the only country that has Euro 6 standards and an age limit of the same as, the 5-year age limit. We do have Rwanda that is moving quite well when it comes to mandatory vehicles inspection and repairs. As I mentioned, Morocco, Mauritius. So we do have pockets of countries that are doing well, and I think we need to expand that.
Deepak, go ahead.
One of the challenges there, especially, I think, is that this new set of cars that are coming in are very much software based. So the electrification and the digitization of these cars make that, kind of the upskilling that you will need to do needs to be combined with having the ability to access the service software that is necessary to kind of assess these vehicles. So I think there's a huge challenge there as well, to simply say, look, Africa will not import cars if the software servicing is not opened up, because otherwise, you may import Huawei cars or Tesla cars, but if you do not have access to the software, it's just a dead asset. Again, the situation in Kenya, where you have cars sitting around for battery dead. But here it would simply be that you simply do not have access to something digital, where the vehicle may still be perfectly in order. So again, on that level, I think also a UN coordination, a Africa-wide coordination to say, look, this is what we would like from the car-producing countries to basically preempt on. You are still at a design phase where a lot of these electrical vehicles can still be made compliant. But then again, I think Euro 7, Euro 8 kind of norms will be very important to ensure that 5 to 7 years down the road, the vehicles that will show up in Africa will not aggravate the problem, because at this point you can retrofit. I mean, even if the car is a wreck, you can still retrofit the car with another engine or something else and still get it to move, which will not happen with electrical digital vehicles.
It's also
maybe
another
just to comment on the yes, maybe just to comment on that, definitely. And we are already working on this. So apart from what I showed on the importing countries, working with them on standards and regulations, we're also involving and engaging the exporters. So we've already had 2 exporters meeting. We are planning a third, maybe towards the end of this year or and the year. Next year, to bring them together, the EU, Japan, this time with China as well, as I mentioned, and South Korea, the UK, because first, to ensure, we want to see whether they could come up with a consensus. No export of these end-of-life vehicles. Vehicles that are supposed to go for dismantling should not be, exported having another life at a profit, because they're exporting these vehicles at a high price. Then the second thing that we're also engaging them is on data sharing and information sharing, because I think it's quite important. Sometimes this vehicle has had 3 accidents, in those countries, and you don't know when you're importing it. You don't know the status. So how do we share this kind of information? So that's what we are engaging them on, some minimum data sharing and also minimum regulation. Yeah.
I think we've come to the end of this first presentation and Q&A, because I don't want us to be running out of time. But do not hesitate if you have any questions that pop into your mind while the second presentation has begun. Put it in the chat, and we'll try to find a way to answer to your question afterwards. So let's jump into the next presentation with another perspective, this time from the private sector, and an active member of Movin'On, which is Michelin, represented here by Menji Majadajela. I hope I pronounced it well.
I'll pronounce it, don't worry.
Who is a sustainability leader and norms and regulations manager at Michelin Sub-Saharan Africa. In her role, she drives the integration of sustainability principle with regulatory compliance, ensuring that Michelin's operation align with both global and local industry expectations. Menji is deeply committed to advancing sustainable solutions in the mobility and tire sectors. She's a passionate about creating long-term value through innovation, compliance, and environmental stewardship, and actively contributes to industry dialogues that bridge sustainability with business performance. Manji will actually talk about the sustainability strategy of the group, focusing on end-of-life tires and how it is implemented in the continent and beyond, with few examples, I believe. So thank you, Manji, to be here today, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Charlene, and thank you to all attendees. So my name is Mangi Magadagera. I know my last name is a bit tricky, but yeah, I'm with Michelin. Thank you, Charlene, for the introduction. This morning, I'll take you through the Michelin sustainability approach. I'll also take you through some of the ambitions, some of the goals that we've got for both 2030 and 2050. I'll touch on a few tangible activities that we've done in Africa and in other parts of the world. Like Charlene has already mentioned, this morning I'll purely focus on end-of-life tire recycling. Is my presentation moving on your side?
Not yet on my side.
Okay. All right. All right, thank you. So, like I said, sustainability is a very broad subject, and even though today I am focusing or purely focusing on end-of-life tires recycling, which forms just one part of vehicles, but a very critical part thereof. As Michelin on a whole global level, we are aiming to reach zero net emissions for both scopes 1 and 2. As most of you might already know, scope 3, it's really a scope that is not in our control, but we continue supporting our suppliers and continue supporting through our products to make sure that we do reach our targets. So these are just a highlight, just an overview, aeroplane view of where we are, what our target is for 2030, and how we continue to track that we reaching our net emissions in 2030. So we do a whole lot of R&D when it comes to our products, and I know this is very optimistic, but our vision, our ambition is to be completely sustainable by 2050. And what I mean by that is 100% of our materials that goes into our tires must be recyclable by 2050. And we continue having this research, this developments into our products to make sure that even the tires that are on the ground, they are sustainable, and all the material that goes into the tire, knowing very well that today tires are non-biodegradable, and should a tire be left anywhere, it will take millions and millions of years for it to decompose. But what we are working through is all this material that goes into our tires should be recyclable, and we should reach 100% recyclable material by 2050. So I think I'll touch a lot on what is happening on the ground. Just as an overview for Africa, I'll speak on South Africa a lot, but there are some parts of Africa as well which are visited on this subject of end-of-life tires, right? It remains a big challenge in Africa. It causes environmental pollution, health risk, and hazards. Currently in South Africa, we are faced with mine facing ceasing of operations because they've ran out of land. You've get these tires stockpiled into their yard. They don't have space. They are storing these tires, some illegally on some dump sites, and it's posing health risk. And you can all think about what it does to the environment in a longer term. But in general, Africa as a whole, we've got a problem of end-of-life tires. And in some parts of the world, I think the most challenge that these companies, these end users are facing is the legislation as well, where it's weak or maybe poorly enforced. I traveled to West Africa a few months ago, and very unbelievable to hear mining customers that have a lot of these stockpiles. They're burying these tires onto the ground. You can imagine what it does to the environment, what it does to the planet as well. It's really not sustainable. They don't have solutions in place. Some, they don't even have people that can handle these tires, and we continue facing this this risk and challenge. South Africa alone, they produce around 250,000 to 300,000 tons per year of tires. If you could see the aerial view of the dump sites in South Africa, how it's purely managed, it's a challenge. And as Michelin being a tire company, being a manufacturer and supplier of these tires, we need to come with solutions that supports our customers, that supports our end users with a circular with a secular solution for what do we do with this end of life tires. There are some management plans that were enforced in South Africa, and currently they've since been withdrawn. We've got some game players in South Africa that are doing, to some level, recycling of smaller tires. We've got the Waste Bureau. It's really not the case when you look at places like West Africa. Like I mentioned, I was in Ghana and looking at just the ecosystem, which does not exist when it comes to end of life of tires. There are no recycling companies closer to these facilities. So it leaves the minds with the challenge to say, what do we do with this rubber, with these tires that are lying in our yard? And they all resort to either burying the tires. Some are even burning the tires, and you can imagine the amount of air pollution it's posing to the people in those environment, and some of the health risk basically. So yes, it remains a challenge, but we're working very closely with specific organization, association, and also our end users to give them some a solution which is secular, which is sustainable, and again, it needs to be safe. So I think I've touched on that we are working with our customers to offer solutions to help them operate safer, and most importantly, it has to be sustainable. What we've done is we've looked at how does the market looks like, how much we've done research to say, let us scale this and see how much tonnage of rubber does the specific regions in Africa, in other parts of the world, what is the risk and how can we bridge this gap that we've got. There are game players that have explained previously to say in South Africa, we find that there are recycling partners that are already there existing. Some, of course, cannot handle larger mining tires, and some can. And this is our approach that we're taking, not just in Africa, but in every region that we operate, to say, we want to partner with the game players that are there in the market, the people who know how to handle these tires in a safe way. If anything, we are not experts in recycling, but we support, we get to collaborate with this mining custom, with this recycling companies, collaborate with them, make sure they're operating safe, make sure that at the end of the process, they are even offering a destruction certificate to our customers to say, we did, in fact, destruct this product, or which the tire, in a safe way. And what is also important is to understand the downstream market. It's another thing finding a solution for recycling of a tire, and the downstream market is not there. There are different processes when you speak of recycling. Some are doing shredding, some are doing crumbing, some are doing pyrolysis. But if the downstream market is not defined, it ends up being not a sustainable solution. And this is the challenge that we probably face in some parts of Africa as well, because you would say you are introducing crumbing, and you look at the downstream market of the product that's going to come out from downsizing this tire, and it's not there. It doesn't exist. Now you need to export this material to other parts of the world that they can utilize it. So it's very important that us as Michelin understand what the downstream market is, understand the need of that downstream market in the specific area that solution it's being imposed in. So we make sure we work with our customers to say, is it sustainable? Do we have a downstream market for this solution? I'm currently working on a few projects in West Africa. It's still a point where we are defining the ecosystem. We're trying to find what solution could be implemented in West Africa that's going to be sustainable for end of life tire solution. And we work with mining industries in that parts of the world. In South Africa, it has advanced quite a bit, where I've done a proof of concept with one recycling partner that is based in South Africa. The recycling partner does pyrolysis, and the downstream market was defined to say, these are the products that you will get from this process, and this is where they are going. So we've worked in a way that we have done a proof of concept to test the capability possibilities. For one, can this recycling company handle the mining tires that we speak of, 4 meters wide of tires, not just passenger tires? We've done that proof of concept where we've proved it, and we continue defining other aspects just in the South African market as well. The willingness to pay, which is quite a challenge in every customer, basically. They're saying, why should we pay for the service? Some are not agreeing with the cost. So it's a very, very hard solution to implement if there is that resistance of saying we cannot pay, which we do get from some customers. At the end of the day, this solution is a paid solution, working together with the recycling partner and with the legislation that is different, which is different for every part. In South Africa, currently there is none, even though there's some sort of a waste management plan. There are some risk of these organizations or mines closing should they not have a solution in place. Hence, they will be forced to say, okay, we will implement the solution and pay for the solution. But you go to other regions and they say, there is no legislation. Why should I pay for recycling a tire when in any case the recycling partner must pay us? So it's really different mentalities across all the regions. I'll also give an example of one of our factory in Chile. In South America, we've got a downsizing facility that side, which we started from scratch. And honestly, the push that side, it was because of the legislation. And this is not something that we want to adapt in different parts of the world. Like I said, we are not we're not experts in recycling, but we believe the experts are there. We can partner with them and make sure that we give a solution that is secular and that is sustainable. So legislations are different in different countries. We continue talking to these government bodies and seeing how can we work together to give a solution for a more, I would say, a cleaner environment and a safe environment as well. I think you might also be asking yourself with the proof of concept, where does it stem for? And everything that is happening across the world, actually West Africa, whether it's the European countries as well. It's a crisis. In South Africa, the crisis is landfill. We are out of landfill. These tires are sitting there. They will not be decomposed. They are just filling up space, posing health risk, posing other risk as well, because should a fire start in these dump sites, it's really going to be detrimental. In other parts of the world as well, there's ESG goals. Of course, I said I'm not going to touch on a whole sustainability, but we all know that we are all moving towards reducing CO2 emissions. As an example, we all, as different entities, as different organizations, have ESG goals that we need to achieve by a set date. And this is just part of what we as Michelin are trying to do together with our customers to reach our ESG goals. I think I will end by playing you guys a very short video, less than 2 minutes, just to give you an idea of what I've done in South Africa and the concept that we've used for the proof of concept to make sure that we recycle these mining tires. Let me know if there is sound.
No, I think you should do what we've done before, like stop sharing and then share it with the sound.
Okay, I will play it again. Sorry for that, guys. My name is Mangi Magadagera. I'm the Business Development Manager in mining. I'm also in charge of sustainability end of life of tires in Africa. Every year, millions of used tires are discarded worldwide, creating an environmental hazard. Simultaneously, mining operations face challenges with sustainability and waste management, especially on end of life of tires. What if we could bridge these two issues, turning waste tires into valuable resources and giving our clients a cradle-to-grave solution? This is our proof of concept. Recycling end-of-life of tires through a process called pyrolysis. It starts with delivering high-quality new tires, designed not only for performance, but also for sustainability. These tires are supported throughout their life cycle with support from our aimed at optimizing performance, ensuring they meet and exceed customer expectations while maximizing their value. But the journey doesn't end when the tires wear out. Once they reach the end of their life, they are not discarded as waste. Instead, they are transformed into valuable resources. We optimized on reverse logistics, using the same truck used to deliver new tires to the mine and loading it with end of life of tires for the return back. Michelin is taking this initiative to help mines not only meet regulatory compliance standards, but also demonstrate their commitment to sustainability. This initiative enhances ESG performance, supports the broader goal of minimizing the environmental impact on mining activities. Lastly, but definitely not least, as I quote our group CEO, in the Michelin of tomorrow, everything will be sustainable. Thank you. And that's it from me.
Thank you very much, Manji. And we see that the moving,
Charlene, you're breaking.
Okay, so okay. Can you hear me better now?
Okay,
maybe if I remove my camera. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, no, I said thank you very much, Manji, for your presentation and actually to share the insights on the ground and see that the group is actually active on this important and key issue of end of life tires, not only in Africa but also in other parts of the world. And with a significant case of South Africa, I would be really curious, but I will leave maybe the audience for the first questions. But I will really be curious to know the role of, as you mentioned, Michelin is not a recycler and actually rely on partners to make sure that your products are recyclable and recycled and disposed well. I was wondering about how these partnerships are taking place in Africa, as we've seen many local solutions actually transform tires. And if it doesn't work, what is the barrier today? What are the barriers today for these partnerships to really become a reality and an impact? And is maybe CSR of your partners, including mining partners, have a role to play in that? I would say in the development of these local initiatives to actually recycle a higher quantity of tires.
Yeah. I think I'll answer part of the question based on South Africa and also touch on the maybe global view or Africa view as a whole. To get these partners, it's a challenge. There are certain aspects that we need to make sure that they are in line with before we can actually pursue any activity with them. I do not work alone. Of course, there's a team of technical people that I will work with. They are mainly based in France. I will work with the team that are more in charge of circularity. There will be technical aspects that they are evaluated on. With the technical comes the safety part of it. So we need to make sure that whoever we partner with is certified. It's doing everything in their operations in a safe way. And we can really now recommend them to the mining sector or to any of our customers to say, this is a recycling company that we can work with. In terms of funding them or maybe getting them to a level, sometimes we identify a local recycling company that we would like to work with, and maybe they're not certified or they're not at a level that we deem fit. And there are certain funds, of course, that we can unlock to get them there, whether it's from a SED, supplier enterprise development, whether it's from a triple BEE funding system. We unlock those funds and make sure that we get them to a level that we can partner with them. I think with these initiatives being fairly new in Michelin, and when I say fairly new, it's in terms of execution. It's been talked about for the longest time, but execution wise, it's been fairly new. In Africa as a whole, we are struggling, of course, to find this recycling partners that we can partner with. Like we cannot find them at all. So it becomes a challenge. It becomes something like who can open those facilities in those parts of the world? Because at the end of the day, us as Michelin are not going to be in charge of the day-to-day activities. Those people need to be satisfied, to be certified. The facilities has to be built from scratch in this case. So it becomes a challenge, but the role that Michelin still plays, it's that of partnership, it's that of Michelin already has contracts with these mining customers. And if we already have a contract, it's an easy way of doing business between the mine and Michelin, even though there's a third party involved, but then it just saves the mine that paid to say, okay, we need to now involve a third party. We can just do this through Michelin, which we trust for our products, as an example. I also mentioned there are certain association and government bodies that should be taking care of this recycling, but they are not. And the main issue remains logistics. Logistics, it's very expensive, and this associations or organizations, I say, we cannot afford to be collecting a 4-ton tire, which is just one tire, and transport it to these dump sites or recycling plants. And what Michelin is doing is, on a monthly basis, we are actually sending trucks to these customers with new tires. We're sending these tires, and these trucks are coming back empty. Why not leverage that to say, instead of these trucks coming back empty, we leverage on the reverse logistics. In that way, you get to save on the logistics, which is an issue, and ease of business, basically. So we implement and also make sure that this whole reverse logistics, it's being tracked from a Michelin point of view until such a point where this tire is destructed and there's a destruction certificate for it.
And what is missing actually at the moment to get this reverse logistics, as you mentioned, to actually come to, as I mentioned in the question, to come to reality? Like, what are is it because of the bureaucracy inside the mining companies, or what is stopping us?
Two things. The one is the willingness to pay from the mining perspective. So the mine is saying we don't want to pay for the solution unless we are forced. That's one blocking point. The second blocking point is capabilities. I spoke of West Africa. I was in Guinea, I was in Ghana, where I was trying to understand the ecosystem thereof. There is no recycling company that side or ecosystem that exists today. So that on its own is a blocking point. Combined as well with the willingness to pay. You speak to those people, they're saying, but why are we paying? They don't want to invest in it because there is no law that binds them to do it. So there's certain things that are blocking us, different regions. In South Africa, I think I've cracked it with some of the mining houses, but definitely not all of them. There's still a lot of work to be done, but with some of them, I think they are now coming to the party to say, we need to implement this because we will risk our facilities being shut off.
And do you think sorry, that without the involvement of all the partners, like in actually recycling the tires that they are using, Michelin will be able to actually achieve the 2050 goal, the net zero that you mentioned at the very beginning of your presentation? Is isn't it? I mentioned like the ecosystem. It takes an ecosystem to do it, and
Sure.
if there's only let's say Michelin acting on that side, um, how will you be able to actually make it to this goal, to
We
this end?
need we need everyone on board to be able
Mm,
to reach our goals as well. And I mean, we continue working as hard as we can to make sure that everyone is involved in this. I think I mentioned on a slide that these people, these mining customers, this any customer actually, or any organization, they also have ESG goals. And
mhm,
for us to make sure that we all at different entities reach our ESG goals, we should all work in unit.
mhm.
Yeah.
I think there's a this is a perfect note to actually, if there's no other questions for Manji, to go on to the next presentation. I'm actually, I don't know if I can do that, but I will do it anyways. Uh, I think there is some Michelin colleagues online, and I really wanted to have one, I would say, one example uh, on how end of life tires is actually implemented in their country, and how they see a collaboration between continents. Is Michelin has a platform today to actually cross fertilize between continents to make sure that these initiatives are moving even faster than it is today and that it was before. Who is going to who is going to share?
Do we have anyone?
Jean Daniel. Oh, Jean Daniel left. I was hoping for Jean Daniel to actually talk about Cameroon, but I
Okay.
think he left. I will definitely, we will definitely go on to the next presentation.
Thank you.
Uh, and last but not least, actually, it is a pleasure to welcome Hamed Sekou Cissé, who is the country manager of Auto 24, Auto 24 in Côte d'Ivoire, a Pan-African mobility platform backed by Stellantis with strong expertise in commercial development and growth strategy, has led major projects in the automotive and digital transformation sectors across Africa, certified in digital business strategy by MIT Sloan Executive Education. It combines operational leadership with strategic vision to drive innovation and performance in the African market. So, as I mentioned earlier, the core business of Auto 24 is to provide certified used vehicles in Africa. So, the issue of end of life vehicle is an important topic that they address every day, basically. And I personally thank them again for their collaboration. 2 years ago, there was a COPIL. For those who knew this format, we did a steering committee for Movin'On Africa, and they actually spoke about access to affordable vehicle, and they are again here today. So thank you, Hamed. And I let you
Well,
share your screen, or I will for you as you want.
yes, I wanted to share because I've been able to upload on my laptop,
Okay.
but it's like there I don't have the access to share.
You don't really.
Yes, have you seen the second Ahmed?
Let me see.
There's the second Ahmed here.
Really?
Just
Okay.
Ahmed.
We have two Hamed. Okay.
Yes, the
Let
second
me
one.
check. Let me check. It will take a second. I think you're able to
Yes,
share now.
it's
Okay.
possible.
Perfect.
Thank you. Can you see my screen now?
I think it's loading. Yeah, we see your yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you everyone. And it's a pleasure to talk to you guys and also being part of this nice talk about the building transcontinental action in terms of sustainability of mobilities. Um, I think my approach will be like more safe. The fact that Auto 24 can be a solution for all of for many things that we talk about since the beginning of the session. So Auto 24 is, as Charlene introduced, is the Pan-African platforms. We are backed up by Stellantis and Africa Group. We are in 5 countries. Can you still stream my screen? Okay, we are in 5 countries: Morocco, Senegal, Rwanda, and South Africa, and also we are also OEMs when it comes to electric car, and we are part of the first OEMs in CIV in Cote d'Ivoire brings uh, um, electric car. Why I was saying Auto 24 can be a solution, because in CIV, as Jane mentioned, there's a rule who mm, make the fact compulsory for any car to come in CIV. The car should have less than 5 years old. At the beginning, people was asking how was it simple to do that? It was, I think Paul was asking that question. Was it simple to do that? And the response is no. It was not simple, but it come to point that we needed to do it. As Jen was saying, when she was coming to CIV, she was realizing that there's a lot of old car smoke around everywhere, and it was really not good and look good to see, even in terms of design, but to be honest, in terms of safety and health also. So it was something hard, but at the end of the day, people have been forced to do things like that, and now they just can't do any else. And what Auto 24 is giving as a solution is, nobody, when you take this type of decision in any countries, me, I will not put Africa as a, as a unit possibility to operate, but I know that based on my experience and all the travel that I've done so far, that every market in Africa, every country has its own specific way to do things. And so I believe that every single country must have, must draw something that fit on him, and that also can be benefit based on their cost and based on their population. So in CIV, the first step of the government was to refresh the road around the city. Was they refresh the road, and after that they're now trying to stop this importation of old car in town, and now people are more buying a brand new car. But there's a remaining some level of population who don't have enough money to afford a brand new car. This is where exactly Auto 24 have its power, because we are giving the solution for those who doesn't have enough money to take a brand new car. And the car that we are selling as a used car, we are buying it from the town. We don't import any car. We buy car from town. So which means that we are recycling the car that people are taking in the town to from the OEMs. So we buy car, we inspect the car, we make sure that everything is set, and we do the recondition on the car, engine, transmission. We go far, even for on the paint and color and everything, and we put it back in the market with better condition. This approach is a good solution for part of this population, because um, first of all, they have a good quality of car. They know the traceability of the car. Sometimes when it comes to too much importation, we can face some car that have been stolen in the US or Canada, and Interpol are running behind that and until they catch you with the car. So Auto 24 has given to this part of the population, this solution, and it's something good because um, um, at the same time that we are giving the solution for the population, but at the same time we are helping the government to run behind what he is trying to set up since I think now 16 years now, or 10 years if I'm too far. So what is our key? There's 4 keys. We are developing the development of the of the standard with the different point key, and also we are training and skills transfer. So there's some learning training that we are giving to our employees to make sure that even when it comes to electric car or old car or thermic car, they are being able to fix things best and as much as possible for our customer to have a good and quality car and the cheapest prices. And we also do some education running. So we are also trying, based on our platform, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram, and it's trying to, um, give this, because some of the situation that we are facing for some population is also the ignorance of how to treat or how to use their own car. Some people, they are they are taking they don't take too much serious the fact that they should change the oils, to make sure that their tires are still strong enough, this kind of thing. So we are using our social media to also make some advertising to how you must use your car. And when it comes to the period that you have to do the maintenance, don't hesitate, you can come, we can help you. This type of small tips. And also the sentiment of development. Also, this is something also that we are pushing a lot for our customer. And here you can see also we have some partnership with some technical school, and also we are giving this school the opportunity to bring this they are student to our mechanic setup, to be able to let them understand and learn. And it's just a win-win situation, because also they are coming with a new system and new way to set up things, and we are facing them with the reality of the ground, and we just learn from each other. And in terms of electrics, as I was mentioning, we are also part of the main person who started the electric vehicle in CIV. So we have some Citroen Army around, and just to promote vehicle electrics. And also in terms of battery, as we were mentioned previously with Jane, yes, in terms of battery, we are trying to have arrangement with the OEMs in China, to make sure that at the end of the day, when the battery goes down and at the end of its life, we have been able to put it in any container and send it to them back, and they are going to send a brand new one. So basically, without taking too much time, this is how how Auto 24 is giving its position in town in CIV. Any question?
Thank you very much, Hamed. As I mentioned, and I think Jane also mentioned it, like the issue of vehicle technical control is something that needs to come prior to any aspects of. It's one of the aspects also of vehicle end of life, to make sure that vehicles that are on the road are safely maintained and are sold actually with significant and actually controlled procedures and regulations. And that's actually one part of the business of Auto 24.
Of course.
And after that, I think that he actually echoes the question of Alexi of Guild that actually wrote on the chat, what about the spare parts? Like after actually maintaining and make sure that the car that you take are um, complying to safe uh, emissions and no, safety and emission, sorry, standards. How do you make sure that afterwards your customer can continuously maintain its vehicle and make sure that it is actually safe for him and for others. Um,
Okay.
and if I can read the question and entirely, so you talked about reused, new reused, refurbished, and remanufactured. What about end of life of vehicles? I
No.
think that you could actually answer
Yes, yes.
for
I
both.
will. I will explain by
Mhm,
answering the question. It's
mhm.
not refactoring the car. We are not, no. Is
Remanufactured.
exactly what how Auto 24 is standing. Let me explain. Let's say, for example, Mr. A bought a brand new car at 10 million safer, and he used it for 5 years. Mr. A is a high person in the society. He can afford a brand new car. But there's Mr. B too who wants a car, and he can afford a brand new car. So when Mr. A will change his car at 5 years or at after 3 years, Auto 24 will buy the car and make it once I'm saying brand new is like just fixing the part that need to be fixed, putting a guarantee on it so that Mr. B can come back to Auto 24 for maintenance. And also Mr. B, the advantage of that is Mr. B can have a good quality of car at the low prices, and
Mhm,
with also a trusted traceability. Because the problem that we are facing with the car that we are importing, first of all, as I was saying, sometimes the car have been stolen, you know, and also we don't know much of the car. Sometimes the car have been broke there, and they just repair it basically, and they bring it to us. So the advantage with Auto 24 is the fact that you know exactly where the car is coming from. You have the guarantee of the car, and you have a good quality of spare part of the car, and you have also your warranty, and all these things with the low prices. And how are we doing for us to be able to give them this quality of service with the low prices? Is just because we don't import. We just buy car from CIV already. We buy car from Abidjan, from Wake, from Yamsukro, from CIV. So we don't import anything. And so, which is also a good situation and opportunity for those who want car, because I don't know if I can say it like that, but in CIV, I don't think that having a car is something like a luxury. No, it's really important because the capital is really, vast. Distance are long, and we are not too developed in terms of metro, ramway, and all this stuff. So having a car is really a necessity for many people to go to their work, to place A to place B. So this is basically how Auto 24 are trying to just because when the decision come in terms of stopping bringing used car from outside, the reality is the brand new car around increase their prices
mhm,
because people do not have any more choices. So what Auto 24 is doing is just picking all these car around which were still in the country already and make it better in terms of look and also in terms of health and safety, and propose for the second life with maintenance and guarantee at least 1 or 2 years. This is how we are trying to manage the situation.
Okay. Is it clear, Alexi, or do you have something else to add to your question for Hamid to answer? I think that silence means no. So it's perfect. And does anyone else have a question about
Charlene?
the lives? Yeah,
Yes,
Alexi.
sorry. No, it was not. It was a technical issue.
Okay.
So,
Go ahead.
so no, I was talking about spare parts and not about the cars, obviously. And then the last question is end of life vehicles.
I see.
What happens to the vehicle when what's the next step once they can't be used anymore? Do you use some spare parts? What do you do with the car?
Okay, Auto24, we are selling those cars. So the car, when we are selling them, basically the car is with their owner. But what we can do as an offer, there's a company here in CIV who used to take all this material and for other issues. So basically, this is what is happening, and I think half of the option is taking the spare part of those cars to make to put it on other car who needed more.
So
Okay.
what you're basically saying is that the business of Auto24 is stopping after 1 or 2 years after the warranty of 1 or 2
Yes,
years.
of course, as any
And
OEMs around. But
then,
what we are making sure is just the fact that you have a safe car at a low prices, and you don't need to spend much as like that. And those car also sometimes we are taking it back, and 2 years later we can take them back. Yes, we can take them back. And what we are doing, as Alexi was trying to explain or proposing, yes, we doing also. We use this, some of the part we use it, and other part we just give to, I don't know how to say it in English, but it's les ferrailleurs. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Some of the informal workers I was mentioning at the beginning, they're also part of this downstream market that needs to be understood, and but that also needs to be trained. And the question of Alex is really relevant, because we've seen it with the electric vehicles, for example, with repurposing of batteries, like batteries that have been used for a number of years and that needs to find another life elsewhere because it can't be used again in a vehicle, though. So that's also an important issue for spare parts.
Yes.
And that's why the recyclability of the materials are so important to take into account in the market, in the automotive market.
Of course.
And I think that Henry Camo from Sustainable Transport Africa, based in Kenya, had a question. I don't know why he stopped writing, but I really invite him to actually just open the mic and speak directly. And I will be happy to see his face again, because it's been a long time.
Hello. Yeah.
Hello, Henry.
Very interesting conversation. I just noticed that electric 2 and 3 wheelers have really gained popularity within the region, mainly because of the financing model, where they only buy the vehicle and then the batteries are leased. And this seems to work with electric buses as well, where operators lease out the battery and buy the vehicle. So I'm just wondering whether this model could be used to increase the uptake of four-wheelers and increase the competition against the used vehicle imports.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I don't know if it's really an open question to Hamed, but also to Jane and to and maybe to Manji. But I think Jane mentioned some interesting aspects of it as well. But yeah, really free to answer. And if there's a need to repeat as well, don't hesitate to ask Henry.
Yes, please.
Does
Maybe I
anyone?
can respond to
Yeah.
Henry.
Mhm.
Yes. Hi, Henry. So maybe just to respond, I see, because I participated in a workshop that was in Norway recently. You know, Norway now is 100% electric from April. And there was a company that does similar battery swapping. In fact, it's not even battery swapping. For them, it's charging. You take your car, and within a short time they take out the battery. So it's sort of like new technology. They take out the battery from, the battery comes out, and another new battery is put in. But what I found is that it's not very popular, because you're not so sure about the quality of the battery that is being placed. You bought your car with the battery, so it wasn't really a leasing, but they're changing the battery, you're getting another one. So it's still not popular. So I think that model is a bit more difficult, especially because of the ownership. For the electric motorcycles, it's the cost is not quite high. For the buses, you're actually getting the bus and leasing, the battery. So I think for the private car use, it's a different model. I think what we are seeing as a possibility to have a higher uptick for the electric cars is moving to smaller compact cars, which are really cost effective, almost the same cost as an ICE car. So that is what we are trying to promote, because that's what we've seen in China. People coming to smaller compact cars that are comparable with the ICE vehicles.
Okay, yeah, that's true. That's true.
Okay, then. Is there any more questions for Hamed, but also for our two other speakers? Maybe because you didn't have time to ask it before, don't hesitate. We still have a few minutes.
Perhaps on the tires, Michelin. Is there increased activity on repurposing old tires for construction material, rather than dumping in waste fields? Yeah.
By construction material, are we referring to the carbon black going back to tar roads?
I think there's a whole range of things. I think they're being used in tarmac. Being used for tarmac, and also for, I don't know, house construction.
Yes, there's a lot.
But there's a whole range of appliances. I've seen even some poles made from plastics. Anyway, yeah.
No, definitely. There's a whole lot that different recycling companies are doing. In South Africa, I've seen some also using the TDF, which is more like the downsized or shredded material, go into cement plants, as an example. So an alternative to coal. So there's a whole lot happening across regions, but it's also dependent on the process that the recycling company is doing. So yes, I do see that as well.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Thank you.
Maybe, Shalina, I can comment on the question that was raised by Alexis on the spare parts. I think that's really an important question, because
Alexis,
yes, we've seen that especially in most of the countries, the spare parts coming in are substandard quality. Not original. I would call it fake, sort of. So that's one of the issues, having standards in place to ensure that the spare parts being used. So in addition to what you had raised on mechanic training, the spare parts also plays a very key role. Then the second thing, the reason why we are also, it's important to regulate the quality of used vehicles coming in. I mentioned in some of the countries, 30-year-old, 40-year-old vehicles starting their life. So in some of those countries, what they found is that even the spare parts, new spare parts are no longer being produced by the vehicle OEM. Yeah. So the vehicle is so old, it has already been phased out from the production line. So what some of those countries were seeing is that a lot of the countries had to rely on second-hand spare parts, which was again, a huge cost to the country. So that is quite an important thing. How do you have, good quality, even if they're new or refurbished spare parts, because that's integral into the whole system of the used vehicles. And then, of course, how do you deal with the end-of-life vehicles? As I mentioned in our program, that's something that we are looking at, not just the batteries, how to recycle, how to reuse, and proper management of those, but also the end-of-life vehicles themselves. So we are looking at how do we set up programs and policies around this, especially when it comes to electric vehicles. This will be quite critical.
And what is the name of the list of programs you have shared? What is the program that is actually that include the spare parts circularity or even quality?
Yeah, under the Global Electric Mobility Program, that's where we're having this program of end-of-life batteries and vehicles as well. So it is a component under that. And of course, also under the used vehicles work that we do. You saw the cleaner and safer used vehicles. So it is also something that we are doing there, that we are working in this.
Okay. And maybe just another aspect before I actually share with you some news, and then we'll close the session. You mentioned the safe and cleaner vehicle program. What are the countries today that? How do you make sure? Because I must imagine it's not it's not that it's not compulsory, but do you fix a minimum deadline achievement, or is there any tools that we can use for countries to actually accelerate the implementation of this program? Does UNEP have thought about some I don't really know how to if it's the right word to use, but how do you make it mandatory, basically? How do you make it an urgence for them to act on it?
So I think that is something that also was raised by Paul. How do we make it? As UN, it's up to the countries, up to the sub-regions to adapt what we do. And what Paul also raised earlier on is that you can only bring it to the forefront, showcase why countries need to act on this, the benefits of it, the cost of inaction, what can be done. And what we are seeing is that countries are willing to, when they see the challenge and the cost and the, what in terms of health, in terms of safety, lives. So we are seeing countries actually wanting to act on it. It's not very easy, as Ahmed has said. When you put, especially vehicle regulation, there's a lot of complaint. Like how do you make it also social? Because you don't also want to make it expensive. So that's what we're doing. So currently we've worked. I supported mainly countries and sub-regions, sort of a few countries and sub-regions. We've had engagements in the Southern Africa sub-region, in East Africa sub-region, in the Central Africa sub-region, also West Africa sub-region. We've also supported in Asia countries, Cambodia, for example, and Thailand as well, Mongolia as well. We're also working with this Latin America, especially the Caribbean sub-region and some specific countries in Latin America, like Paraguay, that also relies heavily on used vehicles. So it is sort of I would say, a global program. But as I said, it's more of bringing out to light what can be done, what kind of regulations, working with the FIA. FIA has done very excellent videos on the issue to support the sensitization. CITA, which is the International Vehicle Inspection Agency, has done quite good reports on what can be done on data sharing and some of the good experiences. And for us, what we've been advocating, as Hamed said, because of course, good quality vehicles will cost slightly more, but in the long run, of course, a cheap, very old, dilapidated vehicle is still going to cost you more in terms of the spare parts and all that. So what we've been doing is that also we've been advocating in countries to have good public transport, because of course, if you're looking at more sustainable transport, it should be public and active mobility where possible, walking, cycling. But public transport, again, alleviates the need for everybody wanting to own a car, because that's also not sustainable in the long run. Yeah, so that's the approach we're using.
Yeah, and I think that's a really great approach, and I think that it's a long time process as well. This really comes with it touches the behavioral change, and when it touches mentality and behavior, it takes time. But with awareness, raising awareness, like Ahmed mentioned, and with working together, like Manji also mentioned, I think we'll get there. Thank you very much, you three, for your presentations, and we have come to the last part of this webinar, where I will share with you some news related to Movin'On in Africa, and maybe some of which you could contribute to. Let me share my screen. So since the last time the ecosystem actually gathered, so since the last steering committee, there have been some activities that we have carried out. Last March, we have participated to the Climate Change Europe Africa Summit held in Marseille. It was actually a great event to strengthen cooperation between Europe and Africa on adaptation specifically to climate change, and Movin'On was among the 60+ organizations to sign the Marseille Declaration, which is a call for action that will be promoted at various international events, including the next COP in Belém. And in June, Movin'On Africa contributed to SLOCAT Transport, Climate and Sustainability Global Global Status Report, as peer reviewer on 2 modules, and it is now available on SLOCAT website. It is a great, it offers a great overview of transport trends around the world, with a lot of contributions from many organizations. So I think it's something of value that you could also benefit from, that everyone here could benefit from. And lastly, we have actually taken part to the TUMI conference in Leipzig. which was a very insightful and inspiring event in terms of content, but also engagement, implemented by the German corporation GIZ and supported by BNZ, so the Ministry of Federal of Development, Business Development. And it gathers a lot of international organizations, but also cities from the global south, not only from Africa. And it was a really a mess, I would say, of not a mess, sorry, I would say a mess in French. So a really great gathering of what it takes to build a sustainable, inclusive, and safe environment for our cities, and especially for people. And after that, after the latest news, we have also great news ahead, upcoming events coming in October.
And Charlene, sorry to interrupt, but I'm afraid we can't. You don't pass your slide, and we are. I don't know if it's only me. Yes, we are frozen on the first one.
It's just
really.
Yeah.
I've been actually sliding. So, which slide do you see now? Because I can't see your face nor anything apart from my screen. So tell me which slide you see.
Latest news, yes.
The latest news, really?
Yes. Yes, maybe share your full screen, your entire screen, I think, as the other did.
That's what I've been doing. I'm sharing the entire screen right now, so.
Okay, now it's now we are on the climate change.
Okay, so now it's as it is small, so I can't put it in full screen.
Okay.
If I put it in full screen, maybe you won't see the. But let's try it again. Let's try it again. Do you see it now? I will change. Do you see the change? It hasn't changed? It hasn't moved?
No, we are in climate change and very small.
Okay. So there's probably a problem of connection or network.
Yes. Now okay. Now look at. So
okay,
yes, maybe you have a lag.
I'm just keeping it that way. Sorry for
I think, Charlene, you've shared your specific window and not the screen.
Exactly.
So when you go full screen, it just keeps sharing that window, not the full screen.
Okay, so
if you go out and represent, but then present full screen.
Okay, I will do that. Stop sharing. Hop. Here you go. Okay. Should be able to see now. Hop. Okay. Now put it in full screen.
Perfect.
Okay. So yeah, for the climate change summit, I think you've all remembered what I said, but this is the different insights here from the participants, the nationalities represented. We had 2 sessions. We attended 2 sessions dedicated on transport and mobility in Africa. There were 4 in total, but also dedicated to Europe. And then, as I mentioned, an official document signed by Movin'On, the Déclaration of Marseille. For the SLOCAT Global Status Report, it is available, as I mentioned, on the website of SLOCAT, and we actually peer-reviewed 2 modules, one of role of business and one of regional trends regarding Africa. Then we had the TUMI conference with like smaller participation, but really variable in terms of organizations represented and in terms of content. as well, with some African countries represented as well, notably cities of Douala and the city of Lagos. Then I think I stopped there, and I was about to tell you about the upcoming events, starting with one that happened a few days or weeks ago. Movin'On has become officially an association under the 1901 law, with the aim of promoting the general interest and accelerating the development of sustainable mobility. So both in Europe and Africa, of course. So we're still a dedicated ecosystem with its member, and we welcome new members as well as donation to continue the work and contribute to sustainable mobility. Then the second event, so the upcoming event, we'll have in October. We will participate to the Africa e-Mobility Week with a great session co-organized by TUMI and Movin'On on Africa's e-mobility startup ecosystem. So we had the opportunity to invite 4 startups from Senegal, from Côte d'Ivoire, from Zimbabwe as well, and from Tunisia. So a great representation of the continent, as Kenya and Ethiopia will be well represented there. And if any of you are coming there, make sure to stop by the session on the 16th of October. And say hi and connect again. It would be a pleasure. And then the second event coming up is the Climate Change Africa Summit happening in Benin, dedicated to renewable energies. So the program is not yet revealed, and we will have a contribution from Movin'On to be confirmed. So this is the last news I wanted to share with you, and now we'll be able to close the session. I really thank you all for your participation, and thank the speakers for your time, for your commitment, and also for your engagement today.